Doktor Katarina Bjelke'yi. Gönül ister ki tabii kendilerini burada fiziksel olarak ağırlayabilelim ama Covid döneminde durum böyle. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you clearly. Thank you
good.
that you accept our invitation for the Future Healthcare Conference. It's a pleasure and honor to see you here.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for the invitation. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to present a little bit about space medicine and what it can teach us. So my name is Katarina Bjelke, and I'm the chair of the Swedish National Space Agency, but I'm also, as you heard, the University Director of Karolinska Institute. And as I see, in a future aspect, that is a really brilliant combination, actually. And I will tell you a little bit of why I think that is. So this is a brief outline of the presentation. I will tell you a little bit about the Swedish National Space Agency, a little bit about the Space Research Program, and also about the European Space Agency and the opportunity for space medicine and life sciences, and then examples from the Swedish space physiology and life science projects. So if I start with the Swedish National Space Agency, then it's a rather small governmental agency under the Ministry of Education and Research. The annual budget is about 110 billion euros, and 75% of those money goes to ESA programs, and 25% goes to national and bilateral programs. The main tasks then for the Swedish National Space Agency is that it is responsible for national and international activities related to space and Earth observation. But we also distribute government grants for space research and technology development. It also satisfies Sweden's need of space infrastructure. It promotes Swedish space industry and space research. And in general, this is a kind of a special agency, actually, because it also has a role as a research council at the same time. So it takes bottom-up calls for projects within all fields of space science, including then space medicine and life science in space. Sweden is a member of the European Space Agency, and its national program then relies heavily on opportunities offered by ESA. As I said, a lot of the Swedish financing to this area goes via European Space Agency's programs. And you can see that the program includes career grants, research grants, and so on. If we look at the European Space Agency's explorations program, which is called an E3P, and its follow-up, which is called Terra Nova, this program, which Sweden is a part of, and many other countries also, it provides access to the International Space Station, ISS, and a lot of other also infrastructure that are very useful for doing research in space. We have parabolic flights, sounding rockets, isolation studies, and different kind of things. And you can access those programs through calls for proposals. Usually those programs, they rely also on national funding, so that is required to cover staff costs, travel, and so forth. So this Swedish National Space Research Program enables then Swedish participation in these infrastructures that can be used then to do research in space. There are many questions that can be addressed within space life science. Some of them you can see here on the picture. You can do adaptation of the human body to microgravity, physical and physiological challenges during long-duration human space missions, effects of radiation, space environment, dust, etc. on human cells and also on other living cells. You can ask yourself actually, how does space exploration benefit medicine? Well, the science experiments performed on astronauts in space, the experiments improves our understanding of medical conditions on Earth. And this research has actually produced findings that can help people suffering from cardiovascular diseases, type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, and balance problems, as an example. If we look then at the research platforms in life science and space medicines that can be used, we have, of course, the International Space Station, and there the astronauts are used as subjects for various studies, of course, after an agreement with the astronauts, of course. The space station, ISS, which is probably the most famous infrastructure we have, is actually not that far away. Actually, it's 6 hours up in the sky, about 400 kilometers. And it's always, all around the year, it has staff there to take care of the experiments and to do a lot of other stuff, of course. We also have other infrastructure like Concordia, for example, research station on Antarctica for isolation studies. Other things are parabolic flights for looking at short duration microgravity studies, and also sounding rockets. Look at sounding rockets. They are actually launched from Esrange in the northern of Sweden. And this is a very special place where you can send the sounding rockets up in the sky, and that there are not many people living up there. So in general, this is not a disturbance to the people living there. So it's a good infrastructure in that way. If we look at Swedish life science and space physiology projects, we have quite a few actually of them. I would say the space medicine that started in the 1940s, but nowadays you can use the infrastructures and use the platforms in space in quite another way than you could before. And this, of course, expands the possibilities to do research in the life science area in space. So here are some of the projects from the Swedish side. We look at, for example, airway monitoring, vision problems. We have bed studies on human body and muscles, study of T cells, and also on stem cells, actually. So I will tell you a little bit about a few of them just to get a grasp of what is possible to do. If we look at the research on the International Space Station, and this is how it looks, quite fabulous. What is being done there, for example, is airway monitoring. They look at lung health in space and on Earth. They look at NO, nitric oxide variation. And nitric oxide is an indicator of airway inflammation, as many of you know. And this is one example of how we can benefit from experiments done on ESS, where we on Earth can use this, for example, in asthma. It is actually clinically used to monitor asthma. And also there is benefits also for space. They look at inhalation of celestial dust and free-floating particles. So they monitor the airway inflammation in this way. So it is fantastic in the way that you can use it both for as in basic research to improve diagnostic value of exhaled NO in patients, and in the long run, they think also improve drug design actually. And if we look at the space medicine, then how can this be used in space? They actually lay the baseline for the use of exhaled NO in space, and this is extremely important for space exploration then. And these are some of the brave astronauts that have been or do live at the ESS at the moment. And as I said, they are the persons who are doing this experiment. So we don't have to send our regular researchers up in space, of course, but we have people working there, which is fantastic in many ways. So some conclusions then from the airway study is that, for example, the lung NO turnover is altered in thin air. You can see that exhaled NO is lower on ISS than pre-flight, but that may not be an effect of microgravity. So those are some of the things that you can see. We have also seen that these projects have future plans to do extended protocols, and these are currently in definition phase. And as I said, this research is of great value for better understanding asthma on Earth then. Another example, which I will take briefly, is research done in Umeå University in collaboration with international partners. It's an ongoing study of astronauts as well as patients with blurred vision and ocular changes. This was first found in an astronaut with symptoms in 2005. And it aims actually to explain why astronauts in long duration spaceflight get impaired eye function. But this is a phenomena that you can also see on Earth. And this study is led by a group, Eklund at Umeå, and also in collaboration with G.C. Buckley, who's professor in physiology and astronaut in Dartmouth College. So if I go over to the sounding rocket experiments, though, which is an easy infrastructure to use, and there some of the persons who work with T cells look at T cells in microgravity, and this is of course important research done in order to understand more of the immune defense, and then they send up T cells in microgravity and look at the cytoskeleton, for example, when they return to Earth. And they actually also have, together with ESA, new experiments on cells in microgravity, which are under development. And there is a rocket plan to be launched from S-Range from the north of Sweden in late 2022. And as you can see, it's a fairly quick experiment to do. Of course, it relies on many years of technological development, but actually what happens is that you send up the T cells 5 minutes of microgravity, and it comes back, they come back to Earth, and you can do experiments and look at how this affects the T cell. And as I said, this is important for the immune defense, both of course on Earth and in space then. What has also been done is to send stem cells into microgravity. This was conducted in 2019, and new and advanced experiments under development for next sounding rocket flight. And why is this important then, to look at stem cells? Well, the astronauts, of course, have stem cells in the body and in the brain, and it is important to understand how these cells are affected to the space conditions, and if they are able to maintain their property in space, and also to replace damaged or dead cells. And since the stem cells not only can produce new cells, but also support other cell types, the projects want to know then if space conditions will change the supportive capacity of stem cells. The stem cells which have been in space may have acquired novel features which may be beneficial for medical purposes on Earth. And as you know, from the stem cells, they can generate new organs and tissues using 3D printing technology, which is a great potential for exploitation of long duration extraterrestrial voyages. Which is actually something, as you know, the space industry wants us to go on holiday in space, and it is more and more common now to send up also not astronauts but ordinary persons up to space, and they pay quite a lot at the moment for it, but it is extremely important and interesting, of course, to know how this affects the body and what happens with the cells when you go into microgravity. Even though the tourism part of the individuals don't stay very long in microgravity, but anyhow it affects the body in different ways. So as a summary, I can say that space physiology and medicine, it is highly useful for better understanding of medical conditions of patients on Earth, and also, of course, technology development. There are a lot of infrastructures that can be used, and it is not that difficult actually to use them. It is cost efficient to use them, and it is also possible to study the cell level in space at the moment. So I think that space physiology and life sciences in space, is of great importance to understand the impact of the space environment on the human body, and also maybe, as I said, more and more people go into space, prepare for future space explorations, going to Moon, going to Mars, and so on. And I would also like to add that Sweden has many active research groups in the field, and of course we are very interested in international collaboration in this area. I would also like to mention that there are also many other medical advances that came, at least in part, from experiments doing in space. I mean, we have digital imaging breast biopsy systems. They are developed from the Space Telescope technology. We have tiny transmitters to monitor the fetus inside the womb. We have laser angioplasty using fiber optic catheters, and those are all developed in space and in connection to space technology developments. I would of course like to acknowledge all the people, or some of the people who worked with the experience I mentioned, and also ESA and the Swedish National Space Agency, of course. So with that, I hope it has given some new ideas on how we can use space as an infrastructure for solving medical challenges on Earth, and of course also in space. So as I started with my 2 roles at the Karolinska Institute, which is the #1 medical university in Europe, together with my responsibility as chair of the National Swedish Space Agency. They are very interesting at the moment, and I think this is some of the future of health care and possibilities to do life science research in space. So thank you very much for your attention.
Bjelke, how can I spell Bjelke, or how can I say?
Bjelke, yes, that's correct.
Wow, perfect. I am happy to hear this. I wish, by the way, my daughter will be an astronaut in the future. She is so small now, 4 years. And we are discussing too much with my wife. She can be or she cannot. And she says about human anatomy, there are some defects to spend too much time in the space. And after your speech, I will show this speech to her as well. And there will be a hope, we will manage better in the space in the future, I guess.
Yes, I definitely think so, and I think it's a great idea for your daughter to go that way. So it's a long way to go, but worthwhile, I must say.
Okay, thank you very much for your contribution.
Okay, thank you, and have a nice day to everyone.
We wish to see you in Istanbul physically next year.
Oh, yes, I would enjoy that very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.